Okay, so I'm going to go through the questions first and then kind of talk about the alternate case studies. So the first question says, you mentioned that he was resistant to extra technology such as remote mic. Do you think he might be open to doing something without technology such as the ACE program for him and his wife to work on communication? You had mentioned she was a big proponent of the new technology, and I was wondering if they both would have the motivation to attend or if you thought they might benefit from attending. So we don't do a lot of like oral rehab or support groups or anything like that through our clinic. I think it would be beneficial because we did spend so much time counseling if they could work with each other on communication strategies and also something a little bit more structured, such as a support group. I'd have to look in the area to see if there's other SLPs or audiologists that are involved in this. But I do think it could benefit them. They are a bit older. I don't know if that would play into, access to care and them getting to and from appointments. He had mentioned, they don't go a lot of places. And it is kind of a time commitment, but I think if we could get past those restraints, it would be beneficial for both of them. You mentioned that if the patient was interested in accessories, you would have recommended a remote mic to hear his wife better. Was his wife involved in this hearing aid process? Was couple ARS training considered? So, she wasn't involved in the actual picking of the hearing aids, but she was very encouraging in moving forth with new hearing aids. She said that she had wanted him to get new hearing aids for a while. He had seemed more frustrated than she did, but she had only come to the appointment where he decided to get hearing aids, and I think that was kind of the last straw where he finally gave in, and she was there, and she's was encouraging, but she kind of was like, I've been saying for a while we should go forth with this. Um, Couples AR training was not really considered, but after reading a bunch of your guys' responses, I do think that it would be a good option. Um, I think the biggest thing or the best ways that they could be helped would just be informational counseling. So getting the wife on the same page as the husband and making sure that she understands his hearing loss because I know that he does, but I don't know if she does. And then also just communication strategies. So closing the gap between them, making sure they're looking at each other, using visual cues. I don't know if I would necessarily do anything specifically with speech understanding. Like I said, he's 93 or 94. He's been living like this for a long time. We talked a lot about quality of life, and that's why I think a support group or something a little bit more structured would be nice. But I think for him at this point, it would be informational counseling to get him and his wife on the same page, and then just making sure that they understand good communication strategies and how that can help him and her and wherever they're going, him understand the most amount of the words. Since you have been able to document a decrease in speech scores, would this patient benefit from auditory rehabilitation such as speech discrimination training? If so, what type would you recommend or be most beneficial for him? So I kind of explained this in the last slide, but I would recommend a lot of counseling, a support group, and then just really working on communication strategies between people and what that looks like to be successful. I don't think I would do anything specific to the speech discrimination. I understand that hearing aid accessories weren't given at this time, but do you think that the patient would be open to oral rehab once quarantine is over? I got the idea that maybe he'd also benefit from working on communication strategies and being able to talk about his experiences with other. Okay, so again, I kind of answered it all. There was a bunch of the same questions, so I kind of answered it all. I think it was in question 2, but I'll reiterate. Visual cues, communication strategies, informational counseling, and then a support group. So I think all those would be really beneficial. We just don't do a lot of oral rehab, I would per se, at our clinic, but we're always open and giving time to counseling patients and their families, making sure that they're on the same page, and then giving resources if they did move forth with some sort of support group. What would be good things to look out for, red flags when receiving new patients from previous audiologists? What are some good ways to collaborate with other audiologists? So normally when a patient comes in from an outside clinic, we receive their records. So a red flag would be that we aren't receiving their records. Either A, they won't send them because the patient has asked them to send them and we haven't received them, or B, they're not available they should be available. So I guess making sure that that connection is there, being able to receive records back and forth, because we would do the same with another clinic if they were to go get a second opinion or move or, whatever it may be, giving them the access to their records is very important for their quality of care. I would say another way to collaborate would be just talking with the other audiologists and seeing, kind of what they already tried to do, their plans, and just being able to be on the same page. Sometimes some patients have more of a lengthy history, so being able to know some of that history before they come in can always be helpful. And some patients just, want a different change in pace or a different audiologist. So making sure that even when you are collaborating with other audiologists, that you're giving the patients your best, that you show up for them, and it doesn't matter what had happened before, or what they wore before, or what their hearing test was before, that you can use those for a reference, but that you're starting new and being able to take it from the ground up. Some other red flags when receiving new patients from previous audiologists. I would say, if you did receive the records and there was missing tests or like incomplete tests, reaching out to them and, making sure, understanding why they did what they did, that would be important too. Okay, so these are the alternate case studies. So I was just going to kind of go through and comment on them since all of the questions are done. So I think I'll just go through the pros and cons after reading through this, and maybe just comment on a couple other things. So you would fit him with an Oticonic seed. I have actually fit a couple Oticonic seeds, and they do pretty well. They have a huge fitting range, and patients have seemed happy with them. So going with a different manufacturer, I wouldn't disagree with. Pros: potential better speech clarity in struggling environments, Open Sound Navigator to help with background noise cancellation, more feedback control. Cons: wariness in changing manufacturers, not used to the sound speech quality of a different manufacturer, hesitancy from patient on trying something even more new. So I agree with both of those. He was really resistant to even getting new hearing aids, and then if they sounded completely different, I would be nervous that he would just stop wearing them completely. So making sure that we're just giving him the best access to sound that we can. Other medical professions to collaborate with: ENT consult because of the big job in patient speech recognition. Make sure there are no pre-existing conditions. Speech pathologist to help with speech lip reading abilities and counsel patient significant other on better communication skills. So he did follow up with the ENT. We're connected on our same floor. Anytime there's an asymmetry or a drop in speech recognition, or conductive component, anything like that, we always have them follow up. So he did follow up with ENT. There's no other pre-existing conditions. And I do agree, as I addressed in the questions before, I think it would be appropriate for him to, get on the same page with his wife and get some more counseling than what we could give him, and maybe a support group as well. All right, so staying with Phonak, but maybe going to a RIC with a custom ear mold, more comfort, less bulk, more sleek, more powerful. He might like the BTE better because he's used to it. I really wanted to put him in a RIC style with ear molds, and he was super resistant to it. It fit his hearing loss great, but he wouldn't budge. So I agree with you. I would definitely try RIC if the patient was more open to it. Looking at this case and this patient, I think it would be beneficial to contact his previous audiologist so you could gain more insight and have a helpful baseline. Yeah, I agree. I think it would be nice to get some records sent over. I just don't know how easily accessible those are. As I've talked through this case as a whole, there's been kind of a disconnect between the last audiologist and then us. All right, so a Roger Pen or Roger Select. He wasn't really open to accessories. I think the only problem with that is the cost difference. If we could do like a promotion or give him something, maybe he would be more willing to utilize it. But I think like showing him how much the new hearing aids were and then also adding on an accessory, he just wasn't open to the idea. But I do agree that it would kind of cut the distance and be able for him to understand his wife more if he utilized it. Another provider could potentially be a speech language pathologist to teach the patient effective communication strategies. This might also help the patient when it comes to using his Roger pen. Yeah, so I think that effective communication strategies are huge, and we've counseled a lot on that. But like I said, it may be nice to have someone specific who can sit down and have more time with him, more cut out, structured time to go over those strategies. Check the programming of the current aids, run REMS after he's not fit correctly. Fit new hearing aids. Patient has success with new amplification devices. His quality of life is improved and effective communication with his wife. Okay, he dislikes sound quality of new hearing devices. He has the same problem. So, yeah, so I agree. I think that the only plan that we really had was to move forth with new hearing aids. I think we would be doing him a disservice if we kept him in his old hearing aids. Just being able to match targets and getting him the access to sound that he needs to potentially preserve what he has left. Other than regular visits with audiologists, I would also recommend that the patient sees a dermatologist for psoriasis. So I was saying in one of the last alternate treatment plans, he followed up with ENT regarding the asymmetry and um, the speech drop, not the asymmetry. Um, and they had said something about the psoriasis, and he's had some middle ear history in the past. So they gave him some ideas on what to do and how to manage that because he said it was getting kind of itchy. So they gave him some ideas, but I agree following up with a dermatologist would be a good idea. If it was something more serious or, more constant, that you could get on some sort of skin medication or lotion or whatever needed to be for him to be healthy and to be able to wear his hearing aids without it being uncomfortable for him.